Well, Happy New Year to everyone, and I'm grateful to be joining with you today. I'm joined here with our Revenue Secretary, Eric Nelson. I want to thank him for all of his good work over the last year. I can start out by saying that we had a good close to 2025, and our fiscal projections are significantly above where we thought they would be. So this is very positive news. I think a direct result of so much of the hard work that our administration has put in over time. Now, it'd be remiss of me, though, to not start by thanking one of the newest West Virginians who joined our ranks just a couple days ago, my granddaughter, Lucille Marie. She is a cutie, and I am so happy that she's come into the world, and grandbaby and mom and dad are doing great, and I'm hopeful that you guys will have a chance to see her over at the mansion. She really is a cutie, and I think everyone's just in awe of her presence. And she's loud too, in a good way. She's making a lot of noise. You know, over the last year, we've been working hard to demonstrate that when West Virginia sets clear priorities and follows through, we get results. And as we head into the upcoming legislative session, I want West Virginians to know what those priorities are and the direction we intend to take the state next. As I've said from day one, economic development is the foundation block where our state's future rests. We have to continue to focus on that. That's what we've been doing every day over the past year. And I think we're beginning to lay the foundation to grow our economy. We're emphasizing cutting red tape. We want to be the fastest state in the nation to cut red tape. And that matters because those regulatory burdens, they're disguised taxes. They slow companies down, they slow individuals down, and we're working overtime to change that. We're reforming permitting. That makes a big difference as well. I'm really excited about the work we're doing on our one-stop shop permitting reform and the kind of things to have one person in state government in charge of coordinating for things that cross various agencies. Makes a big difference. We're working hard to eliminate waste and redundancies in state government and focusing on how individuals and companies can thrive right here in West Virginia. As you probably all know, on day one in this office, I announced that we were unveiling our backyard brawl to compete much more effectively against the other states that we touch. Entering year two, that remains a big priority. And I think we're delivering on those challenges. Whether it's the universal licensing reciprocity law, we're really proud about that. We've seen over 10% increase in a number of occupational professions year to year, and I think that's attributable to the work that we're doing and of the interest in construction projects here in West Virginia. We're going to have a need for a lot of construction workers over the course of the next few years, and it's critical to have a system in place that makes that happen fast. Think fast, think speed, and that's how West Virginia is going to compete and win. We know in the last few months, West Virginia has secured more than $4.2 billion in private sector investment, and that will bring over 4,200 jobs to our state. That's a significant amount of money. Let me say it again. Over $4.2 billion in private sector jobs, in private sector investment. And when you add up the number of jobs, over 4,200, that's significant by anyone's measure, just in the last 3 months. Also, in recent weeks, we've had confirmation that our broadband proposal was accepted. We'll have some more details on that soon, but that's approximately $546 million over a 4-year period that's coming in to provide good internet coverage to those who are unserved by the internet or underserved. What a difference that's going to make as well. So $546 million on top of that 4.2. And then, of course, you have the recent announcement from last week. We're looking at a potential of $1 billion over a 5-year period. That's $199 million that's been confirmed for year one. That's exciting for improving rural health care in West Virginia. So we're excited about all those developments, and we think that's going to make a big difference from a jobs perspective, from a net migration perspective to move more people into the state and keep more people here at home. When you look at all that we're doing and you combine it with the focus on energy resources and taking advantage of our incredible, bountiful amount of energy that we have in the ground, and you look at the 1.2 gigawatt gas power plant, you look at the initiatives coming out on the 50 by 50 energy plan, we're excited about the upcoming months and the year ahead. And I think West Virginia is setting itself up to be that energy powerhouse in 2026, and we're going to be building all the way to 2050. So, a lot of good things have happened, but we have to keep the progress going. And now, as we're getting closer to the legislative session, I wanted to make clear that one of our top priorities during the session will be tax cuts and tax simplification. And I think that's important, because West Virginians are still feeling the impact of inflation. They were suffering for a long time. People know that groceries cost more, gas has costed more, utilities have costed more. I think we need to change that, and we need to make sure that we're doing more to help everyday West Virginians. That's why I want to cut the income tax, and that's probably the cleanest way to help all individuals in West Virginia afford everyday life. Cutting the income tax is going to reward work, it's going to put more money back in people's pockets, and it's going to make our state more affordable and attractive for investment. A lower income tax is going to tell investors that West Virginia is the place to grow their businesses. When businesses choose us over neighboring states, they're going to strengthen the communities that we have and keep our younger people here at home. Now, the proposal that we're getting ready to unveil builds on a lot of the progress that we've already made as a state, and I was pleased to be a big part of that when I served as the state attorney general, when we had filed the litigation that helped allow a lot of the tax cuts to go through years ago. We know that the state has made progress in lowering income taxes, but I think we need to do more. And the people and the businesses here in our state that call West Virginia home, they deserve more immediate tax relief, and that's what I plan to deliver. My proposal for the upcoming session will provide several additional tax cuts that will help provide relief for taxpayers while maintaining the fiscal responsibility we've set as a standard for the first year of my administration. The policies we're going to be pushing are designed to help us compete better with the other states that we touch. And we can do this now because we've been proceeding in a very fiscally responsible manner. Through the first 6 months of my administration's full fiscal year, our total general revenue collections are about 5% above estimate. That's $128 million more than estimated. That's significant. That means we can afford to do a tax cut. Now, these strong revenue figures, they're actually driven a lot by our personal income tax strength and our consumer sales tax collections. And these are two taxes that are important. They're a good barometer for evaluating our state's fiscal health, because when personal income tax and sales taxes are up, even after you've put major tax cuts in place, it's a sign that more West Virginians are investing in our economy and they're spending, and that makes a big difference. And I would note that despite the nearly 6% reduction in income tax rates that occurred last year, our collections are nearly flat for this fiscal year, and consumer sales taxes, they're up nearly 10% for this fiscal year. I think that shows that when we put more money back in people's pockets, people certainly know how to spend it wisely, and that can be used to stimulate our economy further. Now, very importantly, 9 states have indicated that they will have personal income tax reductions lined up for 2026, and that includes Kentucky and Ohio. Well, I want West Virginia to join that list. This year, Kentucky will begin a cut to take its income tax down from 4 to 3.5%. Ohio begins a process to cut their income tax from 3.5 to 2.75%. Currently, West Virginia has a graduated income tax structure with a top rate of 4.82%. In this competitive world, we have to keep up with our neighbors and we have to be better. And when Kentucky and Ohio and any other states tries to pass us in line, we must double down and we must continue to try to get lower income tax rates for our citizens. Over the last year, my administration and myself, we've gone line by line through the budget and looked at all the state agencies. We've been making tough decisions to streamline government, eliminate inefficiencies, and ensure that taxpayer dollars are being used wisely. And we made those decisions because I believe that a government that works for the people is also prioritizing returning money back to the people. And I believe we can deliver meaningful tax relief without sacrificing essential services. But I want to take that tax relief a little bit further. And so one of the proposals we'll make, we believe that we'll have an income tax reduction. We're going to work closely with the legislature on these numbers, but looking at least a 5 to 10%. That is my goal, but I want to work with them to be able to make sure that we're executing this the right way. I've had conversations with the House and Senate leadership, and I've expressed my interest in working closely with them on getting something that passes. We also are working to make changes in the West Virginia tax code that allow West Virginia to come into conformance with many of the items that are within the big, beautiful bill. And there are some pretty significant ones this year. We know that for personal income tax taxpayers, there's some enhancement of the child and dependent care credit that's beneficial, raising the minimum credit from 35 to 50%. We know that for businesses, there's an opportunity to conform to federal standards by increasing bonus depreciation from 60 to 100% for qualified business properties. So there are really good provisions for small businesses that are in the big, beautiful bill that we can bring into conformance right here in West Virginia. And I think that we're also going to be in a position to offer more expansive expensing of domestic research and experimental expenditures for small firms. So a lot of big things. So income tax cut, and what that's designed to do, a lot of people have talked about tips and overtime, right? This is designed to actually have a broader and deeper approach to tax cutting than just limiting it to tips and overtime. So those who support the reduction in taxes on tip and overtime should be very supportive of what we're trying to do, which is to expand it to a broader array of people and to have a deeper tax cut. I think that should bring everyone together, the House, the Senate, and I'm really hopeful about that. West Virginians do deserve that tax cut. Another tax reform that we're proposing, in addition to the income tax cut and to the conforming amendments, is to establish a single unified article to govern historic rehabilitation, historic rehab tax credit. Based upon a lot of the reports that I've seen, this current framework is fragmented and inconsistent. It creates uncertainty for some of the applicants and limits the state's ability to manage the program as effectively as we would like. And this undermines credits being used as an effective economic development tool. So we have proposed changes that would create a modernized statutory framework for historic and rehabilitated buildings. That's going to be terrific. It's going to help us streamline the approval process, enhance predictability, and ensure alignment with West Virginia's broader economic development goals. In addition, we're also proposing an expansion of the Tourism Development Act tax credit. This program has a proven track record of incentivizing growth in the tourism industry. As you guys know, we've really done well in the tourism industry in recent years, and we're looking to supercharge that and also give a lot of additional heft to our efforts to build lodging. That's important. That's why we're proposing a credit on the sales and use tax for those who invest in visitor infrastructure around the state. This, I think, is going to allow business owners to reinvest additional tax revenue generated by their development project back into their growing tourism businesses, rather than paying that revenue to the state in the form of increased sales tax filings. I can tell you that the Tourism Development Act, it's already done many good things for West Virginia. It's attracted over $390 million in investment since the program's inception, with $295 million in tourism investment flowing into the state over the last 8 years alone. It's a powerful little tax credit. So we think that by expanding that tax credit for economic development, it's going to make it easier for more people to invest in lodge infrastructure, which we've heard is one of the real challenges we have here in West Virginia. And because the credit is going to provide credit only, because the program is only going to be providing credit on growth in West Virginia sales and use tax, we don't think there's a risk to the state to provide this expanded opportunity. We want to reward the businesses that are putting their hard-earned money in, and we think this is done in a way to also watch the fisc very carefully. As I've said from day one, laying a solid foundation, investing in infrastructure is critical to our state's success. One of the keys to move West Virginia forward is obviously cutting red tape aggressively, but it's also being more competitive on our tax rates. We're doing everything imaginable to work on the fundamentals every single day, whether it's cutting taxes, whether it's eliminating inefficient spending, whether it's moving faster and faster, or just doing the basics, whether it's more site selection and remediation, more work on water and sewer. I've made that a priority. So it may not be as sexy as other areas, but we're putting time, effort, and energy in, and we have extra discretionary resources. We're trying to get more money into water and sewer. We know the challenges West Virginia's faced. I'm committed to continuing to address that. And of course, with the new news recently with respect to our broadband grant of $546 million and rural health, that's going to provide a lot of additional opportunities to cause more people to move right here to West Virginia to get to work. I really am encouraged about the construction jobs ahead, and I also am looking forward to working with the legislature as to how we're going to deal with the volume of jobs that are coming. We're going to have many, many thousands of new jobs that we're going to have to make sure we have people ready to go to work on. That's a critical issue. And so I'm excited to work with the legislature on that and really make that happen. At the end of the day, if we're working the fundamentals, if we're reducing taxes, if we're cutting red tape, if we're investing in infrastructure, which we are, and we'll have more announcements to come later this week and next week, I think West Virginia is going to be in a great place to win. I look forward to partnering with the legislature on these and many other items. I expect this is going to be a very positive and productive legislative session. I think we're in a position to deliver real tax relief that strengthens families, supports our businesses, and really continues to position West Virginia well in this backyard brawl effort. And I know that when we all work together, West Virginia wins. So I'm pleased to be here today to start the new year in a very positive light, and happy to take any questions that folks may have. I'll start with you, Stephen. You get the first question of the new year.
Governor, you mentioned a range there,
Yeah.
5 to 10%. Are we talking about 5 to 10% spread across our progressive tiered tax system? Or are you talking about a flat tax? Because I think that was talked about leading up to December. What are we talking about specifically there? It's a very broad range.
It is a broad range. So I've talked to the legislative leaders that I want to have detailed conversations with them about that. You know, as you know, we were contemplating doing something at the latter end of last year. And so I think the timeline, especially what happened with the guardsmen in D.C., a lot of our conversations kind of stopped because we were focused on that particular issue. But I would say that there's an opportunity to look at, I mentioned 5 to 10%. I want to make sure we're making meaningful changes to reduce income tax rates. Now, we're open-minded about how this gets done, so I'm not going to lock down on any specific provisions. I can tell you that the goal, though, is to have broad tax relief that families in West Virginia benefit from. And so we're going to work with the legislature to make sure that happens the right way.
Follow up.
Yeah.
course, a couple years ago, they put in place, you know,
Sure.
the glide path for phasing.
The triggers, right.
Tracks. The triggers, we didn't hit that trigger.
We did
this
not,
year,
right.
But we did the year before. That's how we got to, I think that's how we got to the 4%
Yeah.
cut that went into effect. Some lawmakers, including, I believe, the House Finance Committee chair, have expressed keeping that in place and seeing that as more of the trigger for moving forward. Do you think that you're moving too fast, or do you
No,
think the economy will allow for it?
I think that if you look at the projections, and we were very aggressive in terms of reducing spending. I mean, we've been very good about that and being fiscally disciplined. And I think we've been managing this the right way to deliver on that additional tax cut. At the end of the day, I think we have to start with the premise that this is the people's money. And the more we can deliver back to them, the better off we are. And while the trigger hasn't been hit, the fact is that our neighbors are not waiting for our triggers. Ohio and Kentucky and others, they're looking to put tax cuts in place to give them a competitive advantage. I don't want them to have a competitive advantage. I have to look at the world that operates now, and so I want to act and be responsible about it. And so I think there's a way to continue to go deeper on the tax cuts, but to make sure that we're competing with the other states. Stephen, I read to you what happened in Kentucky and Ohio. They're going to come down and be lower than us. I want to change that. Now, I don't know that we can get all of that done in January, but I know we can keep making progress, and I think that's important, that the public needs to keep seeing progress toward lowering our income tax rates. But I believe we can afford it. The fact is that our projections of $128 million up through the end of the year, I think that's a very positive sign. And remember, in the future, I'm hopeful that what we're doing with respect to our investment in our energy resources and the ability to attract data centers, I'm very hopeful we're going to have some announcements coming soon on that, that as that realizes its potential in the later years, that's going to also provide some additional resources to make up for the tax revenue. But I see a good future, and I want to make sure that we're on top of it. How are you? Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
I have a couple questions. And the first is, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, about 30% of West Virginia households are being considered energy burdened. You talked a lot about removing regulatory burdens and helping West Virginia become this energy powerhouse. There's also some reports that are saying that data centers are a major contributor and other sort of big energy projects. Would you ever, maybe put a little red tape on it to protect households from these rising energy costs?
So the good news is the bill that we passed actually was really very deliberate, that we're trying to ensure that the cost of these data centers are not being borne by the ratepayers. That's critical, that we're trying to put systems in place that we have a lot of these hyperscalers that are coming in, making significant investments. So I think the way we structured 2014 is going to really help protect West Virginia. And so that's a superior approach to any of the other states that are thinking about data centers. So that's why I'm really excited about it. Another thing that we did that's very different than what other states are doing on data centers, so when all these articles are written about data centers, they're written about other states. Well, we did something that I think is really out in front of everyone else. We decided that as revenue comes in, a significant amount is going to be placed into a fund that's ultimately going to be providing income tax reduction relief to our citizens. That's significant. Also, there'll be significant amounts of money that go to the counties. And the reason that's important is West Virginia had no data centers. Nothing was happening. And we're making these changes to make West Virginia very desirable, realizing revenue, jobs, a lot of opportunity in a way that didn't happen before. So there's more money for the localities. There's more money for income tax reduction. There's more money for water and sewer. That's a percentage of the bill as well. So there's so much goodness that's in there. I don't know why we'd want to change course.
Well, part of that report was that a lot of those people who were being burdened by their energy costs were in the the lowest of incomes. If they're not getting the relief from, if they're not really seeing the relief from the income tax reduction, Is there anything else you could do to ease that burden for those households?
Well, I think one of the things we do, if we take advantage of our energy resources the right way, we want to make sure that this is a shared benefit for everyone. I know that a lot of West Virginians have seen tax relief over the years, but part of the reason I think it's so important to have, I mentioned the range of 5 to 10%, I mentioned other tax credits, is I want to see a broad array of people that are benefiting from it. One of the reasons we decided to invest in this 5 to 10% range rather than just have it narrowly applied on a couple segments, we talked about going broader than just on overtime on tips. Why? Because I want more West Virginians to enjoy the tax benefits that they richly deserve, and I want them to have deeper tax benefits. So I think the way we're trying to attack this is going to provide a lot of relief to many, many people.
And then my last question, it's sort of related to the income tax reduction. You also, last year when you announced your budget, there you drew some criticism from the legislature over the specific programs that you made cuts to. Do you foresee that being a conflict again when you announce your budget?
No, I want to say thank you to the legislature for ultimately agreeing with large portions of our budget, and I appreciate it. And there's always going to be a back and forth in a process, right, where there might be differences of opinion between the executive and the legislature. I think that this is a process, right? And I have great respect for the legislature and their constitutional role in the system, and I'm sure they have great respect for the role that the executive has. So, we're going to make sure we're protecting taxpayers and that we're returning as much money as we can back to the people. I'm sure that the legislature supports that goal. I know the people of West Virginia support that goal. So I think we've been making the fiscally prudent decisions, and I'm eager to partner with the legislature on the next round.
Thank you.
Hello. How are you? Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Congratulations on the grandchild.
Thank you.
I'm partial to girls. I wanted to ask about agencies in the budgeting process. I know your office has called for budget reductions, as well as you didn't want agencies to ask for state money to replace lost federal funding.
As a general matter, that's true, yeah.
Have any agencies struggled with that? I know we'll get a better look when session starts, but have any agencies struggled with not being able to replace federal funding? I'm wondering about the Department of Ed, and we've heard they've lost at least 10.
The different what, I'm sorry?
I'm wondering about the Department of Education, if they've specifically struggled with losing federal funding. Like, how has that process gone with losing federal funding? Which agency's budget most impacted?
Yeah. So I can say this, the state operates and it can't just absorb all of the reductions or changes that may come from other places. I mean, we have to live within our means, and I'm working to make sure that there's a continued period of strength where we're managing our budget very, very carefully. So I can't speak to the Department of Education, the specific issues there, but I can say that all of the agency we've been meeting closely with, and we're trying to address their immediate needs, right? I mean, that's what we did. So while we ask for some changes and savings, I think that's always prudent to always ask for efficiencies in the system. But we also allow people, and this is different, we allow people to ask for things, right? And to the extent that we think it's warranted, we try to provide new monies. I'll give you a specific example, an issue near and dear to your heart. I am personally very bothered with the number of people that we send out of state for foster care. I think a lot of people in the state are bothered with that. A lot of the reason for that is that we haven't had the provider infrastructure here in the state or the facilities to be able to address that. I think we can change that dynamic, and I'd like to proactively invest to rehab a number of the facilities and invest so that we could have a stronger provider network here. And I think, Amelia, we can actually save money long term, but it does require upfront investment in order to get the savings at the back end. So we're doing things like that, knowing that if you do upfront investment, you might see a little bit of an increase early on for efficiencies in the back end. So those are the conversations that we're having, not to just get more money for the sake of getting more money, but to do this in a way that's bringing the most efficient form of government to the people and delivering on the promises, providing the services that they need. Any other questions?
If I could shift gears away from economics for just briefly, the flu seems to be fairly
Okay.
On the Easy West Virginia site, currently it's showing,
On the what, I'm sorry?
the Easy WD site that the health department covers,
Okay.
currently it is showing influenza-associated pediatric death season total of 1. It's the only death thus far that's been reported on there. We have, are awaiting some information back from the health department on this.
Yeah.
In the interim, I don't know if your office would be able to provide any information about that, possibly the county this occurred in.
I'm happy to follow up with you on that. After this, I'll ask our team, and Annie, maybe we can follow up with Department of Health, and we can get that back to you.
That would be
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Delaney?
With rural,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and congratulations.
Thank you.
With rural health transformation, you said $1 billion over the next 5 years. And then when can people in those communities start to see those changes?
Well, and just so we're clear, it's $199 million for the first year. If you multiply that by 5, which I'm hopeful we'll do, right, means we have to hit all of our marks. But it also could mean if other states don't hit theirs and we hit ours, we might be able to get more. But certainly that's a good one-year amount. So I'm sorry, I may have interrupted you. Go ahead, finish your question.
I was just going to say, when people living in those rural communities start to see changes to
That's a great question. So we're in the process right now of trying to lock down our implementation. We're reaching out, trying to hire some people and teams that can help us implement this because 2026 is upon us now, and we have to make sure that a lot of the initiatives that are publicly available, that we're getting our RFPs together and our different initiatives, and I think you're going to start to see a lot of that in the near future. I know that our team is putting together a list of all the RFPs. I don't think I've seen it yet, but I know that that's going to be coming out at some point where we'll let people know, hey, we have all these initiatives we're going to be doing, and we want to roll it out the right way. But there's a lot to do, as you can imagine, when you're talking about trying to have a really meaningful impact to move the needle in terms of rural health while protecting taxpayer money, because you have to put compliance systems and controls in place. So I know that process is underway right now, and I think I have meetings later in the day and tomorrow about our rural health initiative and the next steps that we have to take. Stephen?
Just a quick follow-up on kind of all that tax stuff.
Yeah.
So the package you just talked about, which of course is conjecture, you got to work with the legislature on that.
Yeah.
Do you have an estimate for how much you think would be hoping to return the taxpayers through these specific proposals?
I don't have that for you today, but we're going to have it very soon. At the latest, of course, we're going to have that for the State of the State, which comes next week. But I personally would like to go bigger because I think that helps, and whether all that's through the budget or there are other changes and other savings in the budget that could be materialized. But I am hopeful that we can really become even more competitive to the other states that we touch. That's our goal.
And inversely to that, the personal income tax is probably the largest driver of state tax revenue.
Yeah.
That we have, and as it's been alluded to, there are certainly no shortage of needs within state government.
Sure.
That funding could perhaps be better used for. So do you think, do you think that cutting and returning to West Virginians is better than, say, trying to pour
Yeah.
that money into, say, Department of Human Services, which we just talked about,
Sure.
particularly with
Yeah.
Foster, has real needs and has
Sure.
real programs that could use that money.
Right. I think what I would say to all the citizens of West Virginia is that we're in an economic competition, and we're competing against all the states across the country. And West Virginia has to make sure that we're in a place where we're more attractive from an economic, a tax perspective, a regulatory perspective, an infrastructure perspective than all the states around us and across the country. And when I start to see Kentucky and Ohio and other states, 9 states reducing their income tax, I don't want to lose that competitive advantage. So I think that it's always a priority to make sure that you're returning money back to the people, because that allows more people to stay at home, and we don't have more people fleeing, leaving our state, and allows more people to migrate right here to West Virginia because there is a competition. People look at that. That's one of the factors determining where people will live. Not the only factor, of course, but so I think it's a very important function. Now, I think what you'll see is that our budget is going to still deliver on the state's priorities, the services that our citizens need, and we listen very carefully. You know, I sat in a lot of these meetings, and I put personal time in because I want to make sure that we're getting it right. And I mentioned the investment in healthcare. That's just one example of many where you're making the right changes. You'll see others like that as well in the areas of infrastructure, in education, proactive, positive investments, and obviously showing priorities on the things that move the needle versus don't make a difference in people's lives. Any other questions for the first presser of the year? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining today. I want to especially thank the work of the Revenue Department and our budget team. And I also know that there was a tough loss in the budget office a couple days ago, and we'll get you some information on that. But we have a lot of people working really hard to do great things for the state. And I certainly appreciate all of their hard work. Thank you, Eric, and thanks to Mark and to Mike. Those guys have done a great work for the state for a long time. You guys know them, and they're good people. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.